I live alone and I have a baby grand piano and I have like what, there comes a point where you start asking yourself, what is it you need and what is it you want? And sure, you can always, no, I think the thing I'm thinking is I was going to say you can always work harder, but I think the thing that I'm feeling right now, and this is why I'm talking to you and I'm talking to so many people, is I don't want to work harder. I want to work better. And it's not that I don't want to continue doing what I do. I love what I do. Part of me wants to get paid more for it, but it's not even about money. It's about, I want to be respected and appreciated more. And
Then you should become a teacher. That's all you should do.
do you think teachers are treated better and appreciated in this country? And I say that with love, nothing
Yeah.
against teachers.
To me, that's the most, my self-esteem, I feel,
Mm.
has been, nothing has done more for me than teaching. Nothing in my life has been more just definitively healing in the way that I think you're talking about, where you feel like, oh my God, I know I have something to offer because I'm offering it, and this person is going, oh, thank goodness, thank you so much for telling me. Now I shall do it. And then they sound better. And you go, oh, like, and because it also, the way that you talk to your students is how you talk to yourself, you know? And so when I talk to my students, when I first started teaching, I was very, very broke. And I knew that I could teach because I knew what I had learned. Like I had learned how to sing from Ron Rains. He had punched me in my belly and showed me how breath support worked.
Wait,
And I
Rob,
knew that
that that name sounds familiar. Was he at
he's
Manhattan?
married to Donna Vaughn.
Right, and he's a Broadway guy, right? Am
Yeah, he was in Follies. Yeah, opposite. He was nominated for the Tony opposite Bernadette Peters.
That's right,
Um,
right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. He punched you in the stomach.
Ron's made so he punched me in the belly and he taught me how to sing, and so I knew, but I had this very tangible thing that I knew I could replicate. I knew I could punch other people in the belly and be like, see that, because like it was not something that I just naturally did, and so I had a product, and so
Right.
I just started teaching. But I was so, at that point, I was probably 26, 25, 26 when I started teaching privately in New York. I taught a little bit in Texas, but it was before I knew how to sing. So it was just like, I was like, can you just do it better? Um, so like, I was like, that was like, I had one student and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. um, so that was another reason why I knew I was ready to teach, is because I'd known what it felt like to not know how to do it. And then
Right.
suddenly I was like, oh, okay, now I do know. Now I have learned. So I went into these lessons with some wonderful students, wonderful people, and I liked them so much, and I wanted them to like me because I wanted to be able to make money and get myself out of poverty and make good on this very expensive degree I had. And so the first thing one of the first things I found and I felt was that I needed to be nicer to them than I'd ever been as nice to myself. I found myself being much more patient with them than I'd ever been with myself. And
Yeah.
and that, and you could call that a reaction to market forces if you want, but it
What do
was
you
just,
mean?
well, you could say that I was only nice because I wanted their return business. You could say that I was only nice because blah blah blah. But but really, it's easier to be nice. It's easy. You get better work out of people when they're comfortable. You can't make someone change. And when you're dealing with voice in particular, you really can't make someone change. You really can't make someone sing right. You have to very slowly cajole them to do it correctly in a good natured way. That's the only way. And so, when after years of teaching, I just found that my whole worldview had changed, because it's like having a kid. I think people, when they have kids, they change, right? Because, and people describe that suddenly everything becomes clear for them. They understand life now. And all that is when you care about someone so much that you just don't want to fuck them up, that you just want things to, and you don't have, there's no longer a reason to lie. We lie to ourselves, we tell ourselves magical things, we believe but if someone else is on the line, that suddenly, you don't want to tell them, you want to tell them the real thing. You want to save them all that energy, all that time. And so as I started teaching, yeah, like it just really made me very compassionate. It made me a much more compassionate person. And I think that that root of compassion is the thing that you want to feel about yourself. And you're hoping that if someone, once you're in a relationship where compassion goes one way, it flows back the other way very easily. And teaching is a really beautiful way to feel that and to learn, and it's also engaging with the art and just the art. There's no show at the end. They're just showing up and hoping you can tell them something to make them better, you
Say that.
know
Say that again. When you're talking about in a relationship, you give the compassion.
if you're in a relationship where compassion flows one way, it becomes very easy for compassion to flow the other way.
Mm.
It just is, and so like, and likewise, if you're in but I think that that's, relationships are always, it blew my mind as a performer to realize how much my energy determined the audition,
Your
right?
the energy of
You've
your
sat in, yeah, like I walk in the room and like, they're doing their thing, but like your energy is half the equation, and I had a really definitive moment, probably like 6 years ago. I was going to meet two collaborators that I'd been like match made with to write a show together, and I didn't know them. And they were both more senior than me, and I was nervous. And so on my way to walk to the Pret a Manger, I like said a little prayer, and I was just like, I want to come in with the best intentions. I want to assume that these other people are also coming in with nothing but the best in their heart, with nothing but positive goodwill, that we're all coming here wanting the best for this project and for each other. And that was a really big shift for me, because I feel like I had spent a lot of my life being very um, skeptical of people, their motivations, trying to figure out what's going on,
yeah, yeah.
trying to position myself, or like take the right tack, or like what type of thing should I, all this stuff. And it was very overcomplicated and worrisome and just wasn't even functional, and it just made me really unhappy. And
Mhm.
so with teaching, you can also get in your head about that. Oh, someone's coming. What should I say? What type of thing should I? And then once you just realize, like, no, just like just be kind and tell them the truth. And then you realize, oh shit, if I just live my whole life like that, my life gets way less complicated.
You hit on something for me. I'm thinking back to like some of the dreams and like stuff, in therapy we're talking about, like there's stuff that comes up for you that doesn't go away because you have to deal with it. And I think for me,
Mm-hmm.
the struggles I face are thinking back to times like that where I had sort of a cynical approach,
Mm-hmm.
and an untrusting approach with other people, because
Mm-hmm.
maybe there was a legitimate, I mean, it's a bit like, excuse me, it's a bit like a child learning not to touch the stove. Like if you burn your hand once, you learn not to touch a stove. And um, maybe that's not the best analogy, but I think people who have been unkind or difficult in this, especially in our business, where we traffic emotions for a living. It's like our business is creating those events, and money being a faction of that, right? A factor in that. So when things don't go well, it's not enough to say that things didn't go well. It's that you're out. It can be damaging, and also just um, reputation and career and ego gets involved. But I think back to, like, there were times on tour when I was on that I was always second guessing other people, and then also second guessing myself.
Mm-hmm. Because of course, because if you're doing that to other people, you're doing it to yourself. I
Oh,
don't think there's a single person whose relationship with themselves is so drastically different from the relationship they have with other people. I think if you're feeling it about you, you're feeling it about other people, and vice versa.
but I think about teaching, and I think about work, and I think about my relationships. I tend to be kind. I think, at least, I think sometimes what I'm trying to catch myself in is I'm sometimes kinder to other people than I am to myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I tell a student it's okay, whereas to myself I say, ugh, why did I know better?
Let me ask you this. When you tell the student it's okay,
Right.
there are two layers that are possible. There's two realities that are possible in that moment. There is the moment where you say it's okay and you genuinely mean it. You genuinely like, don't fucking worry about it. We're going to do it again.
Right.
And
Right.
then there's the it's okay where you're saying it's okay, but
Right.
you're saying it's okay because you know that's what you're supposed to say, but maybe on some level you're cringing. What do you think is more your reality in those moments?
I think the former. Like I really do think
Good. Great.
that right, because that's also breaking. It's also breaking generations and centuries of using a ruler and slapping
Mm-hmm.
kids on the wrist. I mean proverbially speaking, like I wasn't slapped on the wrist, but there was a strictness. Now again, I don't want to sacrifice the standard and tell everyone, oh, everyone gets an A, it's fine. But I think
But you don't get graded anyways though. Like learning music is like is like learning to weld. It's not about winning. It's literally it takes you as long as it takes you, and until the thing's welded together, you're not a welder. That's it. There's no reward or punishment other than did you do the thing? Right?
yeah, I guess I'm thinking like, I had this one student that she's auditioning for high school because in New York you
Mm.
have to audition for high schools. And
Mm-hmm.
what you said earlier about the satisfaction of teaching and sort of the validation in that, I was teaching her and she was singing much better in just the 3 lessons we've had because I'm getting her ready for
Mm-hmm.
something that has a deadline, has a finite deadline. She has to record this to hopefully get in the high school in New York, the performing arts school that she wants to get into. And um, it was so moving. I almost cried, like to hear her sing
Mm-hmm.
it. We were talking. She was doing, that really breathy thing, and we were talking about technique and support and kind of the punch, not the punch to the gut, but that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very satisfying. But when we do a warm up, and she would catch herself not supporting, and she'd kind of break down apologetically. I'm like, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go again. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, it is okay, of course, but then when you go up in front of the judges or the adjudication or the competition or the submissions to the writing workshops or whatever the thing is, then it had then we're brought up against saying not that it's not okay, but that we have to be you you have to be good enough, and that I'm struggling with my terminology here.
The way that I look at it is, you can inform the student of what a certain standard is. You can say this is the level, and you can say, let's watch some videos of some people that are sophomores there or whatever, and you can get a sense of what they're doing. But I think that like that to me as a teacher is a form of trying to control an outcome that you cannot control.
Right.
Like you're trying to say that you know the future. You don't know the future. You don't know if they're not going to get any applicants this year and they let everybody in. You know what I mean? And you don't know if there's not going to be some miracle where she opens up like like I'm not saying that's likely to happen, but I am saying that like as the teacher, it putting pressure on in the form of, well, if you're not good enough, then you won't get X, is really saying, I know the future, I know all the standards, and you don't. And if you don't get X, that's bad. Because that's the biggest implication of all, is that they should absolutely want it, and if they don't get it, that's bad. And I think that the thing is that it doesn't fucking matter whether they get it or not. Like I don't care. Like when my students audition,
Mhm.
I always just am like, you're auditioning against yourself and your standards. That's it. And guess what? If that student does not have an internal barometer of like how good they need to sound, that's not a problem because they're not going to get X. That's just a problem, an artistic problem that is its own problem. So that's a taste problem. That's a taste issue. And so you have every right to educate your students on taste. I educate my students on taste all the time. I make listening lists for them and I make them listen to great singers. I say, listen to Nat King Cole, listen to Linda Ronstadt, K.D. Lang, these singers that were very influential to me. And or I think about one of my students. She When she first started studying with me, she was only 11, and I played her Sondheim for the first time. I played her. I know.
What a
She only
privilege.
knew
What a
like
privilege. That's amazing.
highlight of my life. She knew all the pop shows, and I played her Glamorous Life from Little Night Music because because she loves Broadway stuff. And I remember she sat there. She was 12 years old. We listened to the whole thing, and she turned to me and was like, "It's so rich."
Mhm.
And I was so proud. And of course, how funny that she would say "rich" of all the words in the world for a song from Little Night Music, but it was that awakening of like there is more. And I think sometimes we think like, oh, we need to tell them in terms of it's not good enough. Really what it is, hey, did you know that it can be better? Hey, listen to this, you should do it like this. Do you hear the way that this end of the phrase is? You can do that too. Because if they don't hear it, they're not going to hear it now because they're scared. Just because now they're worried. Oh, I'm gonna like, the worry does nothing.
Say that again.
Shame does.
They're not going
they're
to
not going to all they're not going to hear it. They're not going to become better musicians or better artists because they've been told that they're not good enough. Like,
hear.
they're only going to become better because they like hear something. Like, the only reason any of us gets into this is because we like hear someone do something awesome and we're like, I want to do that too. So like, to me it's about positive inspiration rather than like negative fear-based like tut-tutting. Because at the end of the day, like, you can say, like, if you like, I will tell my students, like, they will come in, and I just try to be really real with them about the expectations I have. So I'll be like, look, you're going flat on this note every time. That has to be in tune. That needs to be in tune. So you just need to practice that. Whatever. You need to practice what that breath is going to feel like. You need to think about, the only reason that's happening is because XYZ. Like, talk through it as a technical, there's a problem with the solution, right? And then you say, so this is what you have to accomplish. These are the standards that you have for yourself as an artist. If you can accomplish those things, then that will be a positive outcome. I can't control what the judges do. And and we don't need to protect people from outcomes, is the other thing. You don't have to protect people from the world. You don't have to preserve their innocence. If they get a bad jury back, they'll live.
You just
And if it says like the same things on the form that you've said to them 100 times.
right. Well, hopefully then it shows a level of both your sanity in terms of like, I'm not crazy about the feedback I've been giving or the awareness I have, and also not just my aesthetic and taste, but also the technique and rigor and ethic that I've given myself. Like, I practice this. I know if I'm doing these scales and I'm listening, I'm able to play that line cleanly. And then hearing that in a student, you gave me so much to think about, because I was thinking back to
I'm sorry, I monologued a bit. Sorry.
it's great. It's great. By the way, I don't feel like I'm performing, but how are we doing?
Life is great. I was only gonna say the only thing I need is more coffee, but I want to hear what you have to say, and then I'll get some more coffee.
We'll get some more coffee. I'll do the same, and we'll pause. But when I was at Manhattan, remind me, we were at Manhattan School the same time,
I
because
was an undergrad.
I
Mm-hmm.
like having visions of BMI and concerts you've done, and anyway, it wonderfully feels like it's one of those things where it's almost like I have friends from Interlochen, from high school, and Manhattan School, and BMI in New York, and it almost doesn't matter. It's like, here we
Mm-hmm.
are. Let's
We're
make
all in the biz.
some magic.
Mm-hmm.
But I did this jury, and my teacher, Constance Keene, was so old school, and I don't think she finally, when I was a freshman, she got an honorary doctorate from Manhattan School of Music. But she was one of those, she grew up in the 30s and 40s where she was just performing, and again won the Naumburg at 20 years old. I mean, she was like a child, prodigy.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
She's performing professionally in her teens, and then of course, went on to perform her whole life. And I don't think she ever really, I have to double check her history, but anyway, she got this honorary doctorate when she was like 85 years old, and she'd been teaching since the early 60s. There was a guy named, his last name was Fishbein. I just remember it was Fishbein, and Fishbein was a teacher at Manhattan, and he and my teacher were always at odds. I don't know if it was jealousy. I don't know if it was different tastes in music, but two piano teachers hated each other. and I went and did my jury, and
Oh
out
my
of
God, and we are writing a movie about them. Yeah.
yeah, right. It's like in a world there's fish.
I would watch that. I would watch that about like two like
Dude,
85-year-olds in a music school, like using their piano students as pawns in their petty war. I'm like so into it.
we should make a
Ah,
trailer and just get some of that like dun 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 dun. Like get the dramatic music going and be like,
yeah, the
you
show is
know.
called Half Diminished. Yeah.
So right. So I'm in the big hall and I do my jury and I play my thing and all the teachers are and out of what a score of 5, I think I got 4 point this, 4 point that.
Hmm.
But Fishbine, I don't know, he gave me like a 2 or something and like
Sure.
the whole average down. And I was mortified. I was so embarrassed. And I went to see my teacher and at her penthouse apartment in, this beautiful New York apartment. I remember thinking, I was just so everything. It's everything, Christiana, you're saying about outcomes and about goals. And like I was an A student, I was a 4 point whatever, all the things. And I felt like not that I'd failed her, but I was like, what's going to happen? And she looked at she had the little she talked like she would probably, she always talked like this. She was very New York.
Hmm.
She'd say, I said, she's like, how was the jury? And I said, well, it was fine, but this and that. And I mentioned, she looked at the thing and she said, Fishbine. I said, yeah. And she said, that son of a bitch. Like,
See, like that's gold. And
I,
so, like, here's the thing: is like, well, aren't you glad that that happened? Because now you've got a story going. Fishbine,
that
son
son
of
of
a
a
bitch.
bitch.
Exactly. Like that is gold. That is gold. And that is why, like, this idea of the best auditions are the ones that that winning. It's not always true, and we never just learn from one teacher.
Right.
We never just learn from one teacher, and I think that the desire to like tell students this is what's going to happen and this and that, that's the desire to be the end all be all, and we can't. We really are just one piece of the puzzle, and if we're saying the same thing that they're hearing from other places, that's great. Like it's their job to figure this shit out, though. It is on the artist to keep pushing, and if they get a bad out, if they audition and the person goes, well, that was terrible, or if they just get a whatever, at some point they have to take ownership of that and go like, oh, I'm not practicing, or I'm not listening to my teacher, or maybe I should become a lawyer, or like whatever. But like it's just never our job as teachers to make that determination, because everyone has unlimited potential in a way that's just very true. It's just very true. Everyone has unlimited potential. And I know that because I've seen it again and again. I've seen it. And that's the other thing about teaching that inspires me is I've seen stuff happen that you just go, well, holy smokes, that's a miracle. Like, can you believe it? But there it is. That person that was a whisper singer is now a high belter. And you just go, well, then anything's possible. So why would I put a limit on what I think is possible? Why not say, let's go crazy? What do you want to do? Let's do it.
Well, you're making me think about the attachment to outcome. But
Hmm.
do you want to pause and get coffee?
Let me get some more
Um,
coffee. I'll be right back.
I'll do the same. I'll be right back. Okay.
Perfect. Perfect timing.
Beautiful. As I went downstairs, the Trump impeachment trial is happening, and my mom's
Oh,
watching the news, and it's like, whew,
that's a whole thing. I'm just not. I just like clocked out on that. I'm like, I don't need to watch. I don't need to watch national gaslighting from one
no,
party. Like, I'm good.
that's a right. That's a whole other conversation. But I I listen. Excuse me. I've been doing a meditation every day, and I didn't today yet. It's a morning meditation, so sometimes I do it like 3 in the afternoon. But it's I try to vary it just to keep my like to not do by just go by the motions and every time hear the same thing and not let it affect me. But it really it's one of those things where I hope to hear it every day and let it actually get into my under my skin, which is to say, the meditation is I am enough, I am worthy as I am, I am lovable. And like the first time I heard that, I started crying
Yeah.
because, well, this is the other thing that I kind of discovered for myself is that, you know, I, of course, like my family's awesome. My parents are, everyone loves, and it's there. I think I had a pretty good upbringing in that regard, and of course, being supported with music. But I was exceptional, and I am exceptional in what I do. I was a big fish in a small pond. I went to Interlochen. I went to Manhattan School. I went on Broadway. I did all these extraordinary things. I won awards. Um, but the feeling I got when I had to meditate on the idea of being enough was that, oh shit, I don't know if I've ever been enough.
Yeah.
Because exceptionalism and frankly our culture is, you're gifted. I mean, I was in the gifted and talented program when I was in third grade. Now, I might have had a higher, not even a higher IQ, but like a higher level of ability to, read books and understand things. And my social skills were fine tuned because I was always with my parents, with adults, and in church gatherings. But the idea that what I do is enough is very different. It's a paradigm shift, right? Between
Yes.
what
I do and who I am.
Well, and actually, my guy and I, we were talking about, does your work define you, or does your work? Oh, what was the other one he said? Your work can
reveal you,
reveal you. I like that, and I think right now the struggle that I'm having is, a lot of us in this business, like, you don't get into this for fair weathered attachment, or feelings. You do this when you can't do anything else. Music moves. I mean, it sounds so, high school, self-help poster with the kitten.
It's true.
But like,
yeah,
you don't not do this. You do this because I can spend 6 hours at the piano and not be tired of it. Or
right.
Glamour. Were you listening to the Audra McDonald Glamorous Life, the 80th Sondheim?
It was like the cut tune with the little girl.
Yeah. We were watching YouTube, and Audra came on the red dress because they all had red, and every time, Christiana, it's a well built architecture, structured. It makes sense on a mathematical level. Like, I think about the way the lyrics fall. You hear the hemiolas, you hear the rhythms, and there it's not, I would say it's flawless. It's art. But it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's what you said. I heard that song too when I was a kid, or I heard Into the Woods, and I thought, I don't know what this is, but I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm on a monologue. But the other thing I'd say about the meditation and of course it's one of these meditations where she says a thing and you have to you repeat it. And I'm lying in bed with my hands up saying, I let go of I let go of attachment of any outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to know why things happen. And I don't know that I buy it all the time. I don't know that I, like, even just saying, I love my life loves me. I don't know that I believe it every day, but I just keep doing it as a positive reinforcement, as a way of rewiring. But I think about, like, I want to, because you just had a presentation last night at the Dramatists Guild, and like, I think about, if I write a musical that has this and this and this and this, and I submit it to the O'Neill, or I submit it to this place, or I submit it to this person, or what if I wrote a novel that did this, and this, or what if I submit the article that I'm writing, or what if and I say all that, and I'm so attached to outcome because I want to be adulated. I want to be validated. Is adulated a word?
Adulated. I think there's a
adulated is lament. It says here
that I'm the best. Yeah.
Basically insecure.
Oh my god, it works. Frustration may react with psychosomatic symptoms, such as shingles on your back, not being able to sleep at all.
In other words,
I think you've come up with your content.
The love that they want. A composer can
become a big cunt. Okay. I think we've written it. We've done it.
That's amazing. I'm like, we'll cut that. No, we'll keep that in. That's
do a big, like, bar, like, beep, so your parents can watch.
The Adulations, is it the Adulations Lament? The
the
adulator.
no, I think it's the composer's it's the composer's lament because
I just
they want the adulation of others.
you
And I
know
don't know what someone who adulates is called, if that's a word.
I'm thinking about friends of mine, older friends who are sort of the what's the word, the cautionary tale when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
the battle we fight of, if I can use that language, of like, you know, you know, being
Chasing status.
chasing status. Thank you, chasing status. That's the that was the prequel to Chasing Amy. But
Mm-hmm.
is that when they're in the mall? But oh no, that's yeah, yeah. But thinking that if I win a Tony, if I get nominated, but you know what? But to the point of that, I was writing a Christmas album in 2013, and it was summer. I was getting the album ready to be released that winter, and it didn't happen because of nefarious, all these problems I had with the producer. But of course, Christmas came the next year, so it was fine. Uh,
Right.
I was writing the last song, and I wrote the song rather quickly, and I was very proud of myself, and I was feeling good. And part of it was like I didn't think, and I didn't have time to think. I just wrote, and I was
Mm-hmm.
going to the New York musical festival, the Nymph,
Limp.
that doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the subway. I was late to the party. I was like, I'll just get there, and it'll be like a thing. And I got a text from the stage manager saying, "Where are you? You just won. You won best music director of the festival." And it was like,
Wow.
out of 50 musicals.
That's so cool.
And it was great. And part of that was I was so insistent that my name be present along with the directors, because still I think music directors are not listed on the postcards, on the posters, on the play. We're there, but we're not visible. And a lot of people forget that we're there gluing together the show in a way, as we do. And I won this award, and it was like icing on this cake of like, I'm doing this other thing, and I didn't even think about it, and I felt so special, so glamorous, like, oh, I just won this award knowing I was without even knowing it existed,
Without even trying.
without even
Oh.
trying. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this idea that attachment to outcome, if I do X, I'll get Y. And I think I do it with people, and I'm working on that. To not play chess. I'm not a very good chess player, but to not play chess in my mind and say, well, if I say this, they'll say that. If I behave like
Right.
this, they'll behave like that. If I can be, and I hate to use the word manipulative, but it's manipulative. It's saying, I know how to get people to like me.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly when you work with actors and if it's students or other artists, maybe a nicer way of saying that is, I think there's a bit of therapy in understanding people, being able to read people, hopefully to help them out, hopefully to say to a student, you read your student, you know how much they can take, whether it's the criticisms you have to give or the notes you have to give, or the tough conversations.
Well, I think those are two different things. Like, it's one thing to say, I'm
Yeah.
going to say this so that you'll say that. That's controlling a conversation. That's
Right,
scripting, right?
right, right, right.
And that's not spontaneous. Like,
Yeah.
I do know that there are times when I'm teaching where I go, oh, okay, it's one of these. They're not holding they're not holding this note long enough because they think they don't have enough air. They've got enough air. We're just going to run this script. And I put them through whatever exercise.
Sure.
But and so is that manipulative? Absolutely. Part of being a voice teacher is manipulating someone into doing something that their body literally doesn't want to do. If their body wanted to do it that way, it would already be doing it that way.
And that's a good
And
lesson of like, yeah, follow this example, try this, just trust me, just try this
we're going to go on a journey together, come on. And so I know what this outcome is going to be, and we have a rapport. Students know that when I
yeah.
ask them, okay, now we're going to think of this, or we're going to do this exercise, that they understand. It's not manipulative in the sense that I'm tricking them. They understand that they have paid me to manipulate them in order to change, right? That's what a therapist does, right? And so that's one thing. I think that is very, very different, though, from the idea of I'm going to make you like me, or I'm going to control your response
Right,
for my benefit so that I feel comfortable with this interaction. That's a really big difference.
right. And it's hard, I think it's hard not to do that, or I think people do that maybe not knowing. um but I want, but that, but earlier you were saying about not I'm fixated on this idea of outcome because I think it also stifles it. For me, it stifles the creativity.
It
Um,
does.
Without what? Well, why am I writing this? I'm writing this because
Because I want someone to think I'm so smart.
aren't you so clever for rhyming that rhyme and lining that lyric up and setting that song the way you did? And that pattern you created, that harmonic, isn't that gorgeous? And to the lay person's ear, they're not necessarily hearing, they're hearing it and they're loving it, but they don't know why. And aren't you so clever for putting all that in there? And
Mm-hmm.
you want to be, I mean, yeah, I think we desire to be celebrated for our intellect and our like we spent years studying this, so we should be. What am I trying to say? I mean, I think about, like, I was at
What
urgent
you're
care.
saying is that. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think about
No, go ahead. Go
doctors.
ahead.
Doctors are revered. Doctors for
Mm-hmm.
their for the ability to say, oh, you've got this thing. Here's a thing, and we fix. Here's the prescription. Like, and like, oh God, thank you, doctor. You know, and honestly, I think with teachers, there can be a similar feeling with a singer who can't get past that note or can't get past that breath or
Mm-hmm.
that belt. Yeah, it is
Mm-hmm.
genius when to someone when you are able to say try it like this and they do it. Um, but I have had the feeling lately, and lately has been 10 months. I've had the feeling of wasting away some of the abilities I have and not knowing how best to funnel them, and wishing I was a part of a production or a part of that Tin Pan Alley 9 to 5 where I can go in, I can give you my brilliance because I know I'm brilliant, and then clock out and say that was a good day's
So,
work.
like, I just want to point out the beauty of what's just happened,
Hmm.
which is that you began this by being like, I don't understand how anyone could do a 9 to 5 and just be a cog, a spoke in a wheel, as you said. And here you are, nay, but an hour later saying, I just wish I could be a freaking spoke in a wheel. I wish I could just go somewhere and know. But here's the thing, and this is why I believe that there are people for whom that kind of, well, you know what I'll say
Hmm.
is that everyone has a work structure, even people that work all alone, right? When I write, I have a series of rituals that I do that are just for me. They're not for anyone else, that allow me to feel like I'm in a place. I'm doing a special thing that I do right now in my workplace. And when we are part of a company, I mean, when I taught at New York Film Academy, I loved teaching there. Wonderful students, wonderful faculty, and just a very supportive place, and I felt like I was a part of something, and that's really valuable. It gives you a sense of I have a purpose. And I look back on, I got that job teaching voice there not that long after I graduated from MSM, and
Hmm.
it felt like a really big change. It
Mhm.
felt like I really had, you were talking about this idea of having an identity with your work, whether you are your work, or whether your work reveals you.
Right.
And I felt like when I got that job, I had not gone to MSM with the dream of becoming a voice teacher. I never in my life thought I would be a voice teacher.
Right. Right. Right.
And but I knew that it was something I could genuinely give. So it wasn't about showing off for me. There's nothing terribly flashy about being a voice teacher. A lot of scarves. And but when I got that when I got that job, it was just kind of like, it was to me almost like it was as if the thing that was inside of me was outside of me.
Mhm.
And that was validating, because now everyone could see that, you know what, Christiana Cole, you can say a lot of things about them, but they do know how to teach voice lessons. And there I was doing what I knew how to do. And so I think there is a lot of satisfaction in just like dramatizing what is. And when we are part of a unit, Tin Pan Alley, whatever, there's an external expectation. There's someone saying, I need it by 5.
Right.
And I think you're the type of person that for a lot of your life, and I know I was like this for a very long time, I still am like this. I love external stuff. I love to know, if I know that I've got a workshop and there's going to be actors showing up and they're going to be ready
Right.
to read those lines, that inspires me hugely. I'm not going to pretend like I'm literally only motivated by totally internal things. No, it's a balance. It's a balance of things. And so I think that, like, what though you're dealing with right now, and I relate to this. I think we all deal with this from time to time, is like, how can I just begin working on something without feeling like I know the outcome already, without knowing that this novel, because I don't have any time. Oh my God, how old am I? Am I too old to write a great American novel? Am I too young to write a great American novel? What am I supposed to be doing right now that would lead me to greatness? Ah, and like,
Yes.
truly, the thing that I think it's about is like, what's just in front of you that's interesting? Because like, the world doesn't need anything from you. And when we talk about like being enough, like, I think I told you last time how over a pandemic I've realized that I'm autistic, or like I've accepted my diagnosis. Did we
Hmm.
talk about this? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like, one thing that I had to really reckon with was this idea of, well, it really made me um understand a dynamic that I had my whole life that I didn't appreciate fully. And that is that I felt this great sense of, I need to be exceptional. I have something to prove. I've got a chip on my shoulder. I
Yes.
didn't know what it was totally. Now I do. I know that it was because I knew deep down that I was a total weirdo.
Mm.
That I didn't think anyone would probably want to have sex with me or be my friend unless I had something else that I could bring with me to show, look, no, I am really cool, I am really sexy, I am really great, and I need that exceptionalism, right? And I think that so many people, this is what drives queer people into the arts, is because we have something, we know we're different, and we've got to distract these people somehow. They're going to ask us to talk. I'll sing a song instead of doing a speech, because if I don't want you to know anything about me, so I'm just going to play my piano, and that will be my personality for the evening. And
Yes.
I completely get that. And so then we grow up, and then we have this idea that we have to keep scaling that up and up and up. And so the thought that I had was, what if I had been born without any talent? What if I had been born just this autistic person who's just awkward and just me, and like maybe not, average intelligence, average talent? Would I still be worthy? Would I still love myself? And I had to really, right, and I had to get really real with myself that I love that person, because I think you even know it in this moment, that you are that person, you are that talent, like we both are that talentless, plain, old, boring person, because that's who we get the director's cut. We have to be around us all the time, so no matter
Right.
how sexy and interesting we are around other people, we are ultimately that to ourselves, ultimately. And so I think accepting that person, not accepting Micah as he is, reminding himself how I'm so exceptional, I've been on Broadway, and blah, 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 that to me is, again, that's doubling down on the outcome matters. The outcome matters a great deal, but that's okay, you've had a good outcome, so it's okay. Because that turns you into the person at age 50 who's like, well, I had an off Broadway show once, and you're just like, whoa, the desperation is
Yeah.
stinky, right? Instead of just being cool with like just you, just sitting on the sofa. Greta Garbo, famously boring, right? We were talking about her at the beginning. I remember
Yeah.
reading something about her that was like, all she wanted to do was eat bonbons and watch Hollywood Squares,
That's right. I remember
right?
the
The
bonbons.
bonbons and the Hollywood Squares. And like, I think about that all the time, because to me it's so liberating to think that like, everyone's just a fucking boring person who wants to sit on the sofa and eat bonbons and watch Hollywood. That's all any of us is. None of us is freaking Lin Manuel Miranda, not even Lin Manuel Miranda, and he knows it. He's very open about how human he is, which I like.
Right, but he can sit on a couch and relax because he's already like there's a sense of I can rest when the work is done.
Yeah, but that's a moving goalpost. You know it's a moving goalpost. You know that when you were 17, you thought that you would be sitting back right now. You thought, I'd been on Broadway. I've been a music director on Broadway shows. What more can you want? Oh, well, no, I need a Tony. Okay, I promise you that once you get that Tony, it will be, I haven't been to the moon yet. Like it's going to keep
Right.
moving.
Well, I'll call
It just
Elon
keeps
Musk.
moving. And there will never be a time. My last boyfriend, we broke up in part because of that. I mean, we broke up for very many reasons, but one of the reasons was he kept saying, I'll be happy when I get X. And it was always a career thing. And it would move every year. It was somehow one year, there was one more year. And when we broke up, I had said to him, It's because I realized it was never going to be time to be happy. You were never going to say, it's time to be happy now. And so, like, that's what I've learned is that, and this I think was the great gift of struggle, was when I realized when I graduated from MSM and I had $84,000 in student loan debt and I was staring down $750 a month in student loans payments. I thought, wow, either I can just kill myself now. I can just give up and basically be like, my life sucks. I'm extremely broke.
Right.
And I'm watching all my friends go to grad school. I'm watching all my friends audition for shows that I can't afford to do because they don't pay enough. I
Right.
can either be really sad and judge myself, or I can say, man, that sucks, and just acknowledge reality and say, but this doesn't really mean, again, it doesn't mean something about me. I don't have to like take this on. Instead, I can just put one foot in front of the other and like love myself, love my poor little self that doesn't know what's going to happen next. And yeah, sorry that monologue kind of petered out, but you see what I mean? Like, it's just about like just loving that person just for being, and then like letting the accomplishment just be gravy. Like, it's just like
Right.
anything, you should really just think anything from here on out for Micah is gravy. He's been on Broadway. So now you're like, well, wait, what is my next assignment? And the world's like, guess what? There aren't any.
You said that to me last time we talked about, think of everything as gravy, as you've
I
how
talk
do
a lot about gravy.
you love gravy?
I'm from the South. Hmm.
I just wrote down the great gift of struggle because I just love that expression you just said. I'm gonna
Mm.
meditate on that. And you're right about this. I may have to sit with this as a recording and see what I think. But I'm gonna get into it about sex for a minute because I last night I'm reading Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin,
Mm. Hmm.
and beautiful prose. I mean the chapters are like 30, 40 pages long, but
Mm.
it's just like long paragraphs of describing Paris and everything. It's really beautiful. Um, but I was thinking about how I don't know if it's true just for, well, it's not just true for the queer community, for gay people, but I think that it is so much easier to have a one night stand with someone than it is to cultivate a relationship. In some ways, in some regards,
Oh
because
yeah.
you're not really getting to know them.
You can be super vulnerable and it doesn't matter. Yeah. Because you're not going
Vul-
to see them again.
right, vulnerable in a way that um, it's uncomplicated.
Hmm.
And I was sort of thinking about that and thinking about my current relationship and how I God, I wrote this down in my journal, dear diary. But that it's almost like I'd rather just have sex than worry if you like me.
Hmm. It's the same with the thing that you won that musical director award. it
How,
was it was gratifying because it was, oh, you were just fucking that show. That was just casual. Oh my god, and I won. Oh my god. Right? Because it was just oops.
so you're saying the affection, i.e., the winning of that award, was superfluous, secondary to the show, where I wasn't even thinking about whether or not I would be liked.
I guess yeah, I think it's sort of like this the way that you described that project wasn't like in a negative way, but in a sense
No,
that it wasn't your project. It was like a gig you were doing.
I
You were
was just
doing this
expressing.
thing.
Yeah,
And so it was sort of in the same way that a one night stand is a little bit transactional. We both know why we're here,
yeah.
right? You were there to do the music director thing, and then you got celebrated for it, and that felt good to you because it was like you didn't even have to try.
I didn't even apply for it.
Right. You didn't even apply for it. And so, like, whereas the thing to contrast that with how you feel about art that you're choosing to consciously make, right? The art that falls in your lap, that's a gig that someone else is ultimately responsible for on a psychic level, versus I want to write a book or I want to write a musical or whatever, create an album. Like,
Self-generate. Yeah.
where you are really saying this is mine and I'm choosing to do this, I'm choosing to dedicate my time, I think it's a good idea, it's mine. That is like the relationship, right? That's the thing where you're pouring yourself into it. And so I'm just making that,
No,
drawing that comparison.
I, I think the feeling I had last night, and I was sort of reading, and then I was writing, and I was reading right back and forth. I think that I mean, this is classic, right? True vulnerability is letting yourself be seen without, again, that outcome of like, will he like me or not? Will he like me?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that's, what is that song? Da 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 da. Will he like me?
Mm-hmm. She
Da, da.
loves me.
She loves me. Thank you. See,
Mm-hmm.
I love that show. I can't remember a
Great
line,
tune.
but as if I can remember it, right? Um, uh, but that's where I think a lot of us, in at least I have experienced, a lot of people fall into the habit of it being a one night stand, or it being less, I would say less than. I love one night stands, can be great, but that feeling of um I want to say holding out, but I would say getting more out of a connection with someone. And I think the what you made the connection with for me about the work I create versus the work that I'm hired to do as a gun for hire, pardon the expression,
Mm-hmm.
as an independent contractor. If I'm music directing a show, or if I'm teaching a lesson, which still, I mean, I shouldn't say that about teaching, because I love the teaching. But when you are writing something, you're creating, you're generating, you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and you're doing it without there being necessarily, unless you are being hired to write, which is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. But if you're just sitting down and saying, I'm going to write this show because I have a need to do that,
Mm-hmm.
that's also putting yourself on the line to hopefully be validated, liked. I mean, ultimately, you want a producer to say, I love this idea, I'm going to give you $1 million,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think that one thing I've loved about quarantine is that no one's on Broadway.
Oh,
There's no Broadway.
everyone's out. It's to level that.
Pressure's off. Yeah.
Exactly. The pressure's off.
Yeah. And definitely something that I've been working on. I feel like I've just been through a very, very acute, because everything is cyclical. Everything. Like you said, Christmas returns, right?
Right.
And so, in my experience with this sort of thing, I have found it to be very cyclical. There are times when I'm in a better place with it than others, but overall, it gets better and better and better and better. It's just like my teacher at MSM, Cynthia Hoffman,
Hmm.
gave me an analogy that I use all the time. It's not about singing. Well, it is, but it's about any art form.
Hmm.
But it's also just like about life, which is like, she said, it's like a mountain, and you start, and the first time that you go around the mountain, it's a very long circle. But then the second time you go up it, it's still long, but slightly less long, and the territory is slightly familiar, right? And then the more times you do it, the faster the cycle gets and the more familiar the landscape gets, until you're just going around really fast, right?
At the tip
And
of it, yeah.
at the top, yeah. And I feel like that has been so true for me, in that, like, at this point I can identify it pretty well when I feel like I'm getting sucked into an ego driven
Hmm.
moment, where I know, oh, I'm writing this because I'm trying to impress someone, or I can tell that I'm sitting down and my intentions are not to abandon myself to the play space and just create. I can tell that my intention is, I'm sitting down, I'm going to write a really good scene, damn it, and that aggression, that tortured quality, it always shows up in the art. It's always reflected back, you know. And so for me, I take very seriously not getting out of that mindset and helping, because I can't really create from it.
Right.
Nothing good, I I have to be in that place of acceptance and free
Yeah.
of the outcome, free of the producers, that this is the time to not worry about the producers. And that's what I think is doubly true right now, is quarantine, is because, like, nothing's getting done. And, like, also, as like Allison Gold, who like runs the DGF program, who's amazing, like, she said to me, she was like, look, writing musicals is always slow cooker. It's only instant pot when someone orders it off the menu. And that, I think, is super true, that she's just like, there's absolutely no rush, because she also knows, as you know, as I know, that if someone said, you've got a week, I need to see 45 pages, you could fucking make it happen. You could, and so I don't need to be living in that headspace when that's not reality. That's not what's happening. And so So I think that like that's like there's no hurry, and I feel like when I hear you talk about like what should I be doing, I sense an urgency that is simply not present in the world. Like that urgency is coming from within you, and you have to ask yourself like what does that urgency really want? What does it really demand? Because it definitely isn't reality. It's definitely not like there actually is no rush to create.
Right. And maybe that,
Right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
theater's not coming back, and like you're not like missing a job. Like there's no job. And also like it's not like, oh man, I can't believe I haven't written a Tony Award winning show yet, because it
right.
could be no, like it doesn't matter. You and also you don't want to be in the first season back anyway. There won't be any tourists. So like, so even if you started writing a show today, if
Right.
you started writing a musical today called Fishbine Keen, and it was a show, it was a two-hander about, like
Yeah.
whatever.
It's like
Like if
Frost
you
Nixon.
started Yes, yes, Frost Nixon, but about two piano teachers.
Right.
Like I honestly think you should totally write that off Broadway show. It sounds hilarious to me. And actually, I think it would be a four-hander because they would each have like one student who's like, and it
Right.
would be like this comedy of manners. Okay, anyway,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's spectacular. I'm already buying my tickets for
And then the
Fishbine Keen.
students have to fall in love or something, right? And it's like,
Oh my god, the students fall in love. Yes,
we're
and then
old,
like,
and
but to go
doing things don't work anymore.
yeah, yeah, like the thing is like how delightful, and then like how much do you feel yourself kill it the moment that you think, oh my god, but what if it was real, what if I could really make money off of it? Like it
Right.
has to stay in that place of I'm doing this because I think it's lovely, and my practice as an artist is visiting it every day because that's what makes me happy as an animal, not what because I'm supposed to, because then I can, like, and it's really, really hard. It's really, 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 really hard because, like, look at every guru. And like that there's some of them that are fucking really self-aware and like they really are transcendent and they really are like above it all. And then there's people that look very similar to them, but they are completely faking it.
Oh, I see
Aren't
that. Like,
there?
you're talking
Isn't that true?
yeah, like religious leaders, there are those that are like actual believers and devout and all that, and then you get the Joel Osteens and the Tammy Faye Bakers who are like, give us all your money. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're selling snake oil, like what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, and like I have seen, via BMI and such, like I've seen some composers who are brilliant, award-winning, legendary people who just seem like the most awesome people, and the feedback they give is super kind and compassionate and like
Right.
helpful and correct. And then there's other people who are of equal stature and they come in and they're petty little bitches, and they
Yes.
and they just have this totally different worldview, this totally different headspace that you're just like, whoa, I don't want to live there. And so that's where you just go, well, guess what, like you get to decide which of those people you are. And like, so I literally think of it in terms of like, who am I going to be when I'm 85? And I want to have lived my life suffering in reality instead of toiling under delusion.
Wow. I like that. I mean, I don't want to suffer, but I understand
But it's inevitable.
yeah, suffering is life is suffering, Highness. Anyone who tells you
Yeah,
otherwise is selling something.
it's true, it is true.
Pride, baby.
So I'd rather suffer with my art. I'd rather suffer and wake up and be really honest and like let it suck and like be with myself than suffer, than delude myself into thinking that what I'm really doing is there's a producer and I've got to impress it. There's not, and I don't have to. That's a made up problem I made up for myself based on a movie I saw once or something.
Well, and it's a bit like doing what's that song? Doing what comes naturally. Is that any get your gun?
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
if I pose, and I think what you're saying about some of those composers, I know them too. The ones who are posing like with a certain, they have, some of them have a certain amount of like trying to be sexy and have sex appeal about what they're doing, and it's like, no, just write the fucking song. Um,
Yeah.
but to that point of like, if I pose as someone else, and then there actually is a number behind that, a monetary number saying, here's $1 million, go do that, and I'm like, that's not who I am, as opposed to saying, and I think this is us discovering our voices, like if my style or my sound or whatever comes naturally, doing what comes naturally, I can do what comes naturally, and I don't have to put in that external effort of pretending to be something I'm not, or thinking if I write a pop tune, I'll be popular.
Right.
If I write songs like that guy, I mean, it's that old story of Gershwin going to Ravel and saying, I want,
Mm-hmm.
his whole life he wanted to be validated, and the guy was the most
Mm-hmm.
brilliant, celebrated
Gershwin.
Gershwin.
Yeah.
Two stories. You've heard these. One is, Ravel said, "How much money do you make?" And Gershwin said, "I make about, I think, 10,000 a week or something, 10,000 a month." I mean, he was doing great in like the 20s. And Ravel said, "I think I should be taking lessons from you." And then the other story goes, "Maurice, I would like lessons." And Ravel says to him, "Why would you be a second-rate Ravel when you're a first-rate Gershwin?" I mean, Oscar Peterson,
Yeah.
the same thing. He went to Paris, I think, to study with not Nadia Boulanger. She was but there was a piano teacher there, and the teacher said, I'm not going to teach you, Peterson, because I would ruin you. What you do naturally as a jazz pianist was better. Sorry, shouting.
No, no, no. I was fixing my ear. Yeah.
What you do naturally, Oscar Peterson, is better than what I could put, the facsimile, what I could put on you as a teacher. And so I think when, and I don't know that it's, I mean, is it about validating me when I find that sound or that thing that's genuinely Micah Young, where people are buying what I sell, or is it just like, this is what I do, and not trying to be a frustrated artist about it, but like, I'm happy, and if people like it, I'm sure there's an audience somewhere, right?
Art is very hard. I mean, I think like you're hitting on why like art is hard is because you're basically like, how do I art? Like, which way do I art?
Right. I
And
think the
like,
line is, art isn't easy.
that is the line.
Art.
Yeah. And like, mm-hmm.
Sorry. Such a
And
joke.
it's, yeah. And so like, I think that like, it's, when I took a improv class at UCB 10 years ago because
Oh,
I
nice.
was like trying to figure, I was like just graduated, like what do you do? I guess I'll take an improv class, because you're trying to figure out some way in, like you're trying to figure out some way into the business, you're trying to figure out what's going to be my thing. Like, I knew that I wanted to be in musical theater, I trained as a singer, but I knew that there were lots of different ways to kind of
Mhm.
bust through. And I remember taking that class and going like, okay, I could do this, I could devote the next 7 years of my life to improv, but that just does not feel like, I don't see how this would be my path realistically. Like, it just isn't me. And likewise, like you said about I could write a pop song. Like, yeah, you could, but
Sure.
like, if it just makes you go, okay, I did that, then like, is that a good way to use your life? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm writing musicals. Like, I could write a novel, and one day I will, and one day maybe, and one day I'll write a memoir. But like,
Yeah.
that's not what's really like important to me. Like, it's important to me that I'm writing the musical I'm writing. It
Right.
matters. I feel stressed out when I don't work on it because I know that there's this thing inside of me that just wants to talk, and
Mhm.
this is what it wants to talk about. And so like, I think about you, and I think about like, what's the assignment for Micah Young? And I'm like, I don't know. It's whatever you want to bitch about. Like, truly, that's what I think art is about, is like, what are the things that
Sure.
you are dealing with and
Mm.
you are thinking about and you are ruminating upon and you are seeing visions of when you take your bath? And like, just start jotting that down. And I think like, how bold, like, how exciting would it be if, your artistic practice, your Micah Young's artistic practice was that for 90 minutes a day, you just sit down, and whatever those feelings are that you have, you express it through some kind of medium. You can draw, you can play the piano, you can write a poem, you can do a dance, any fucking thing you want. And you don't judge it, and you just practice
Right.
expression without judgment for 90 minutes a day on whatever subject you feel coming through. And I think if you did that for a month, explicitly, not fighting against it being good, not saying there will be no outcome, there will always be an outcome, but
Right.
staying in the present rather than, when I'm teaching voice lessons, people suck at the high note. It's never the high note's fault. It's always the notes three before it.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
so like, and that's because they're breaking the legato line. And so like, we as artists we have to have the discipline to start at the phrase at the beginning and not go for the high note, not just always be aiming for the high note, but just say, let's just start with the small little grumblings and just like let them stack over time.
I love that. I love that. And I think I journal almost every day, and I write pretty, I mean, pretty honestly and openly, because it's my journal. And I think that,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I have resisted is being not that I'm pretty vulnerable when it comes to the art, but I think that, I've been to too many readings of musicals where it's someone's story,
Mm-hmm.
and they're too close to it, so it's not been curated in any way. But I think you make a good point about the art is whatever we're bitching about. It's whatever, and it's whatever we observe on a bigger umbrella of that comment of bitching. It's like, thinking about, whether it's a blue period or yellow period for was it Van Gogh or Picasso?
Mm-hmm.
Van Gogh had the yellow period. Or if it's just, I thinking about Virginia Woolf, I just need to write about like the
Mm-hmm.
idea of having my space,
Mm-hmm.
and or Sylvia Plath. I was thinking about the bell jar recently.
Love that
Um,
book.
I hate to end this, but I actually need to get going, and I know you
No.
have stuff to do too.
Okay.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like it, love it, share it, tweet it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and join me on Patreon. Patreon.com/MicahYoungMusic. I'll see you there. Bye!